Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever. Same old spiel every time I say it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. John Royceland back again with another episode of the Witching Hour podcast. With me tonight, returning, very special guest, the young, talented filmmaker himself, Mr. Mike Lombardo.
Hello, it's been a while and it's great to be back.
It has. I actually brought my old friend. If you can see him, you were in awe of him last time. You were like, "Oh my God, who is that behind you?"
Well, now I have the crypto holding the.
Oh, that is nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Hey, you have been, dude. You are just a busy man.
That's what they say.
No, so. Folks, to catch everybody up real quick, Mike Lombardo, Real Splatter Productions out of Lancaster, PA. Multi awards for your last, I believe your last, but your first full length feature film, which was I'm Dreaming About a White Doomsday. Incredible film, by the way. I absolutely love that movie. I really do. But we are here to talk about your upcoming film that is in the works called Dead Format, which, by the way, that artwork is phenomenal.
Dude, I lost my shit when we got it. It's from Chris Barnes of Brutal Posters. He does a lot of stuff for Arrow Video. The guy is a class act and a super talented artist. It was just fantastic. And actually, the artwork originally actually came from, I have it right here. It was the
see folks, people just walk out of my show all the time. Oh, but then they come back.
The limited edition of Please Don't Tap on the Glass that Thunderstorm put out. So we did this super limited edition book. We got this new art, and I picked this art because I wanted to do Dead Format. And Paul Gobrish from Thunderstorm was kind enough to let us use the art for the poster, and Brutal Posters, Chris Barnes was like, absolutely, man, do it.
That's awesome.
Instead of making us commission a new poster, because that was exactly what I wanted, I'm like, one day, if I ever made this movie, this is what I would want. I'm like, you know what? That'd make a great book cover. So, here we are. So I was very lucky, but super, super happy with that art. I'm glad you like it.
Oh, man. As soon as I saw it, I actually stopped on your page, scrolled back up, clicked on it just so I could see it in full bloom. Awesome work. So tell us a little bit about the story for those of you out there who don't know the background to it. Fill everybody in.
So I published a book called Please Don't Tap on the Glass. This is the paperback version with a less fancy cover. About 2 years ago at this point now, Please Don't Tap on the Glass and Other Tales of the Melancholy and Grotesque. It's a short story collection. It was like 10 years worth of short fiction for me. And the first story in the book is called Dead Format, which very quickly became the favorite story amongst almost everybody that read it, myself included. I wrote the story when my father passed away, and I was dealing with a lot of stuff. And I was really at a point in my life where I was very much thinking about just like existential dread, which is a normal thing for me, but thinking about like the bygone era of like growing up. I grew up in the early 90s in the video stores, and how much that we talk so much about grief with people, but we don't really talk about it sounds stupid, but the stores and the places that we used to go, they mean almost just as much as people. And so much of my formative years were spent in the video store, like roaming the aisles of Blockbuster and A to Z Video and Hollywood Video and Video Inc., all the little random mom and pops, plus the big chains too, and discovering all these movies for the first time, which really is what made me a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about how, current time, like with streaming, things are so much different. Movies are disposable to people. When you had to hunt down a copy of something or you came across that video box, that was what you had for the weekend. So you watched that fucker sometimes twice. And like a lot of movies that if I had my choice, if I had 10 other movies to watch, I would have turned them off after 20 minutes, but I stuck through them, and then they ended up being awesome. And like, I feel like people engaged with media a lot more back then. So I was thinking about all that, and then my grandmother passed, and we had a VHS tape of my grandmother was my grandparents renewed their wedding vows, and they did it in our house that we grew up in. So there was a VHS tape, like home video of this, and I was digitizing it for my mom so we could play it at the memorial service. So I'm watching this video of me and my brothers. We're like 6, 7 years old. I got to see my cousins. My dad was in it. All these people that have been long gone, and I heard their voices for the first time in 2 decades. And it was a tidal wave. This just crushed me.
I could imagine.
I was like, I am so emotionally devastated right now, but also so grateful that we rented this big ass shoulder mounted camera, because back then filming something was a big deal.
Sure.
And if we wouldn't have done that, then it's like there's so few chances I have to hear my father's voice again and stuff. And it's like, it's scary because sometimes I think I'm afraid I'm going to forget what he sounded like.
Right.
And like, I still have his phone number in my phone, and it's just these little like weird grief rituals and stuff. And I kept thinking about that stuff. And I got to thinking about how that relates to physical media and streaming. And it's like, there's so many movies that never made it from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. I mean, hell, even from the original film, like London After Midnight, like stuff like that got burned up. Like there's entire swaths of film history that have just disappeared.
Right.
And, that's terrible to think that art is just gone.
Right.
And, Nosferatu, we wouldn't have Nosferatu if somebody wouldn't bootleg the print. Like, so I started thinking about that, and I came up with a story about this VHS collector he's an archivist. He archives all of these VHS tapes because he feels that someone has to remember. It's his job to keep these films alive. And you find out later in the story, he's got all of these home videos of his dad that he's watching because he just lost his father. And it all kind of bleeds into that really what he's trying to do is just preserve these memories of his family and all this stuff. And he's alienated himself from his regular life and his friends because he's just so grief-stricken. And he finds out that this is also set in like the early 2000s, right before the video stores all started to go under. So he finds out that the Video Castle, which is the video store that he used to frequent as a kid with his dad, is going out of business. So he drives down there to pick up their horror tapes, and he finds a movie called Next to Die that he's never heard of. There's nothing on the box. There's no description. There's no director. It's just this really weird. Well, actually, I have it downstairs. I wish that we had more time. I would have brought up all these props, but they're online. They're on my Facebook. So he buys this tape that he's never heard of, and it turns out that it is not a normal movie. Spoiler, it's a cursed tape, and things go very, very bad for him and several other people in his life. But the whole thematically, the movie is just about, loss, depression. It's about nostalgia, but it's also about nostalgia as a trap, that it's so easy to wallow in that and think times were so much better back then. But in reality, it's not the time period of the things. It's really just the mindset that you were able to be in. Like, I realize I wallow in nostalgia obsessively, right? So I realize that a lot of these movies and games and books that I revisit all the time, it's not necessarily because I want to be a child again. I love being an adult, being an adult rocks. It sucks a lot of the time, but
sure, I
can remember what I'm really nostalgic for is the point in my life where I was experiencing these things for the first time. Right now, if I ask you what you think of whatever new horror movie is out, no matter what you and I would like to think, our opinion is influenced by outside sources, by the internet, what's cool to say, what's not. Everyone has an agenda now, which sucks, but I mean, it's true, even if you try not to. Right. When you're a child, you're just watching. It's pure. Right. Your interest, the things that you gravitate towards as a kid, you don't have any, there's no outside interference with that. So it's like, this was when I was learning about myself and all these things that I ended up loving and becoming obsessed with. And that's what I miss, is that magic of discovery. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really where the nostalgia comes in for me the most. And I wanted to explore that with this movie and the short story even. And, I wrote these story notes at the end of this, talking about the backstory of this movie. And I said that watching this tape, it was like seeing digital ghosts. And I said that these are ghosts in 30 frames a second. And no matter, I can always, if I want to see my family again, I can always just press play.
Right.
And I've had so many people, even as recently as yesterday, people have read the story and they're just like, dude, I was bawling at the time I finished reading this and read that afterward. And they're like, and all these years, everyone's like, you should make this into a movie. You should make this into a movie. And it was going to be a short film. That was my plan, which everyone has heard before. I did that with White Doomsday as well, which is also based on a short story that's in Please Don't Tap on the Glass.
Right.
So I was all set to do a short film, and I realized it was going to be like 30 minutes long, which is a death sentence on the festival circuit. And then much more intelligent people than I, Samantha Koliesnik, Nathan Ludwig, Brian Keene, they're like, hey, dumbass, make a feature out of this. It's a feature. And I'm like, no, it's not. And then they read the script. They're like, this is a feature. So finally, after, years, I was like, all right, fine, let's just do it. So they convinced me. They came on board as producers. And now we've expanded it into a much larger project. And after 7 years, I'm climbing out of my hermit hole and making another movie. So
and welcome back to the ground.
Thank you.
And no, honestly, it is. It's good to see you, and I love your passion that you have. That the nostalgia is always something that I have memories of, flashbacks all the time of being little in stores and online. People are constantly throwing up these. You're old if you remember, or
Yep.
it'll show closings of department stores that once were, or chain restaurants and so forth. And I'm like, my God, I can remember being in those stores when people you're younger than I am, but you might not even have ever been into some of these certain department stores that I was in as a kid. And that holds memories, snapshot images with my parents when they were still together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could, if my father was with us today, I could be like, do you remember that time? And all I could describe was like this one aisle, and there was a toy here, and there was this woman over there, and the song was playing on the radio. And he would just be like, sure, whatever you say. But that's stuff that I cling on to.
These places do have such a huge impact on our lives, and it sounds like such a consumerist like hell to be in, but like they really do matter. Walking down the aisles, like when I was a kid, when Jurassic Park came out, like everything was Jurassic Park thing. I can picture so clearly the aisles because it just set my imagination running, and I had so many experiences with my brothers and my family that I attached to that. And I feel like nostalgia is not just a remember this, remember that. Everyone quotes that stupid South Park episode with the member berries, and it's like, no, it's the sentiment that's attached to those things that matters. Right. It's not just the object, it's what comes with it. And I think that we've lost sight of that sometimes with shit like Stranger Things and all that. It's like a very corporate packaged version of nostalgia, which I mean is fine too. I'm not above that either, but there's a deeper vein running through it. I mean, it wouldn't be such a thing if people didn't feel this way. And I think when the story came out, I tapped into a vein. A lot of people were like, holy shit, I feel this, man. And I'm like, that's great. It's not just me being crazy. So I'm excited. I hope that we can portray that, in the movie version as well for people.
I'd love to read it. I would. Prior to you completing the film and me being able to watch the film, I'm not a big reader. I'm not, but I would love to. I would love the opportunity to be able to read that from you at some point in the future. So with that being said, how can people go about, let's say they're intrigued by what they've just heard, how can people purchase stuff from you?
So they can go, the most important thing is to go to the Indiegogo page that Dead Format is on. If you search for Dead Format on Google or just go on Indiegogo and search Dead Format, it will come up. We are in the final 23 days of the campaign. We have so far raised, I want to say about $36,000. Our goal is $60,000. We actually passed over 10K in the first day, which was crazy because I didn't think anyone even gave a shit about what I was doing anymore. So that was a big boost in confidence that a lot of people were like, oh my God, we've been waiting for you to make another film. And I'm like, wow, That's honestly awesome. The imposter syndrome was so hard baked into my body that I didn't think that anybody gave a shit, but that's really cool. But on the Dead Format campaign, you can pre-order a Blu-ray that's signed. You can get video store membership cards for Video Castle that are personalized. You can get the actual clamshell rental cases, that we're going to use in the movie. And there's there's a whole bunch of different ones. We've made fake movies for everything. We're actually doing I'm Dreaming of a White Doomsday Part 2, Simon's Quest. I'm so crazy that we are not only making the rental cases for these movies, but I'm actually designing the full cardboard sleeves. So we're doing photo shoots. I actually have one tomorrow. We're doing photo shoots for all the screenshots and the covers. We're doing Weekend at Escobar's, which is in Please Don't Tap on the Glass as well. We're doing Doomsday 2. Tomorrow we've got Mennonite of the Living Dead. We've got Gut Rot Pie, One Missed Turn, which is the Japanese ghost movie parody from Long Pig. We're going full bore, and all of these props are going to be in the video store set, free and used, and they are available on the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo as perks. So you can actually get the ones that we're using, the original props. That's the staff picks perk and the tape head perk. You can get copies of Please Don't Tap on the Glass signed by me on there. You can get White Doomsday on Blu-ray on there. You can get your name in the credits. You can be a producer, an executive producer, if you want to be my angel and donate $1,000, which several people have done, which blows my mind. But
wow,
there's all sorts of cool stuff on there. Every dollar matters. We have $24,000 we need to raise the next 23 days. And people have been so incredible with sharing it, and people like yourself doing podcast interviews and helping to spread the word. And there's a video that we recorded I just did like a wrap up of day one. And the entire time I'm just trying to not cry because I was so overwhelmed with just the support and the love that everybody gave for this. I was like, oh my God, like I was firmly convinced that I was going to fall flat on my face and everyone's going to laugh. And they're like, you're an idiot. And, here we are. It's just been so incredible. So, I know everyone is probably sick and tired of hearing about this damn movie on Facebook because I'm posting about it every day, but that is the reality of running a crowdfunder. I've been 37 days into it and I haven't missed a day. It's so much work, but I've got such a great team behind me this time. So everything is running so much smoother than when we made Doomsday. It was a 4-year production because we had $10,000 to make a feature, which was I look back on it, I don't even understand how the hell it happened. Like, I don't know how we managed to make that movie for so little money, but this time we're trying to up everything, like, bigger, better, bloodier. Like, there's so much cool effect scenes in this movie that I'm so excited to do. I don't want to spoil too much, but we do run over someone's face with a lawnmower. Which I'm very excited for.
That's what I'm talking about.
It is a nasty, nasty movie. And it's kind of like, I'm telling people that there's old real splatter, which was all the horror comedy, like splatter goofy shit that I used to do. And then there's White Doomsday. And there are two polar opposites of the spectrum. Doomsday, super melancholy, serious and depressing. Old real splatter, super funny. I feel like Dead Format is a healthy mix of both, and it kind of shoots down the middle. It's mostly serious. It's about grief. It's about loss. It's about friendship. But there is some humor in it because the characters they're funny, and I feel like, and I'm not just saying this, but everyone has been telling me too, that this movie is my personality in movie form, which makes me really happy. And I mean, this is me hitting an artery. This movie is so damn personal, but I'm letting myself, lighten up the mood a little bit instead of just, people said after they saw Doomsday, they're like, wow, you should hand out Prozac at screenings. Like, this is the most depressing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, well, that was the place that I was in when I made it. My mom was in the ICU. Like, it was not a good time. So this is a little bit lighter, not by much, but I think it's going to be a crowd pleaser. And anyone who remembers walking down the aisles of the video store, like, this is a movie for you. Like, if you watch the Indiegogo video that we shot, we're shooting it in Brian Keene's bookstore, Vortex Books and Comics. We're turning that into the Video Castle. I have actual video store shelves from a video store that was in Kenning Square that I went to as a kid that I've gotten. I have signage from old video stores. Like, it's all 100% authentic stuff. I've been designing fake movie covers. I've been reaching out to filmmakers. I've got some great movies from like J.R. Bookwater, one of my favorite shot on video filmmakers. He lent us a bunch of tapes. Full Moon just said, yes, we can use their stuff. So we're
nice.
Put as much of the actual stuff in there as possible. And it's just, if nothing else, being able to design my own video store has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So I'm just having a fucking blast. Making my own beaded curtain for the adults only stuff. Like, it's just been so much fun. And I'm so hyper obsessed with details that, like, our video store membership cards even have like a 1993 copyright date on them. And they've got like a barcode that if you actually scan it with a barcode reader, it says real splatter. Like, just all sorts of little jokes that no one will ever realize, but they're all in there. And I'm so excited for people to see the movie and for people that back the crowdfunder to get these boxes and these perks and to see all the weird shit we put on them. Like, it's going to be so much fun.
Oh, that's great, man. I can't wait. So, well, speaking of which, Indiegogo, you're part of the way through. You've got, I think you said, 23 days left.
Yes.
That wraps up. What happens from there? Where are you time frame wise looking to hopefully? When could someone like myself be expecting to hopefully, knock on wood, be able to finally see Dead Format?
So after the crowdfunder wraps up, we get to see what kind of money we're looking at. That's going to dictate a lot of our decisions.
Sure.
I've already put about $3,000 of my own money into this in pre-production. I've got several thousand more from my White Doomsday royalties that I will be putting in to fill out the budget. So I just want people to know that I have skin in the game. I'm not just putting my hand out asking for money. I would never do that. And this is the first time I've ever crowdfunded anything, and only because the movie is so fucking huge, we have to. There's so many characters and so much stuff. So we will assess where we're at, and then we start the casting process. And I've been working on props for the last 8 months. Actually, I've been planning this movie for the last 5 years, actually. So I've been buying 90s crap and stuff, like, because there's a lot of flashbacks. So I've been accumulating props. I mean, honestly, my living room looks like a museum right now. I have a 6.5-foot tall suit of armor in my living room right now that's going to be in Video Castle in the video store.
Sure.
So my girlfriend's very happy with me right now. She loves living in a junk heap. So I'm going to continue to get the props together. We do casting, and then we are hoping to start shooting like late fall, possibly like winter. I mean, realistically, probably going to be like springtime before we actually like start to get really into production, just because of how big the movie is. So
I was going to say, you're not going to put your cast back through that frozen hell again, are you?
No. Fortunately, most of this movie takes place indoors, with the exception of a few times, and they're all, fortunately, exteriors at night, which is a great thing. That'll make life so much easier for me, shooting outdoors again.
Right.
But we're going to do all that stuff, and then we're hoping to have it ready for the festival circuit by next year at some point. Because, I mean, like I said, it is a very, very large movie. So we'll see how it goes. But the thing that we've all agreed on, all the producers, is that we are going to take our time, and we're not sacrificing any quality or anything to get it done in time for a certain festival or hit a self-imposed deadline. Like, it will take as long as it takes. It's not going to take 4 years like Doomsday did, but I'm not going to rush things. I want this to be everything that I want it to be. And I'm not just for myself, but for you guys. I want everyone to see the best possible version of this movie. And I can't even explain how excited I am about this. Like, it's just been a dream to be able to make a movie about this stuff. Like, I love videotapes and old home movies and all that. It's just, it's so much fun. I can't wait.
Oh, well, you mentioned the big C word, and I don't mean to see you next Tuesday. You mentioned casting.
Yes.
Do you have anybody in mind, or has anybody actually already been signed on?
So I have a couple people in mind, nothing that I can discuss just yet.
Fair enough.
One person that I will be speaking to here shortly, actually, that tentatively will be coming. He's a familiar face. That's all I will say. But that will be a very, very cool thing. That's very exciting to me. But we will hold off on giving any details about that until the ink is dry.
Of course.
But my absolute dream to cast is, if we make enough money on this crowdfunder, if we have any stretch goals, like if we overfund, which actually is not possible because $60,000 is not even enough money to make this movie. That's just enough to get things rolling, and then I'll put my own money into it, and we'll find some private financing. But I would love to get Clint Howard in this movie to play the video store.
Oh my God.
When I was going to do the short film, that was my goal. And I had an opportunity to meet him and talk to him, and I just chickened out. I couldn't do it.
Really?
But now, I've got some connections to him now, and we'll see, if it's feasible with money. But I realized that I wrote the video store clerk in this movie. I wrote him in the speech cadence of Clint Howard. And now I can't not see anyone but Clint Howard. I absolutely adore Clint Howard. I think he's a genuinely phenomenal actor. And when I think back to that era of film, like the late 80s, early 90s direct-to-video horror, which is what this movie's a love letter to, that is who I think of. Every movie that man is in, it makes it better. And I just, a lot of people, they'll stunt cast, they'll get convention actors and stuff to be in stuff, and like, that's fine. Right. Clint Howard, I feel like, exists in his own weird little plane because he's kind of just like a character actor that was always in smaller roles.
Right.
I want to work with him because I just genuinely love him. And I don't think it's really going to make the movie much more marketable, which is why people do the stunt casting, because it helps with distribution. I just want to do it because I think fucking Clint Howard's amazing. And like, I just read his biography. He's just a super interesting guy. I would just love to work with him. So that's my big dream. Okay. But we'll see. That can only happen if you guys out there all pitch together and donate enough money that we can get this movie made and have the extra to do that.
So without asking a dollar amount, do you happen to know if he is even obtainable?
No idea.
Okay. I know you said that you had people and you've got connections to him, so I didn't know if you were kind of given a ballpark, whether to, let's try it, or just throw the, hands in the air.
That's the next step, because I've seen he's done other indie horror films that the budget was so giant. So my understanding is that he is just someone who loves to work. And all the stories I've heard from people that have worked with him, they're just wonderful stories. The one guy said that I don't know what movie it was, but he had him playing like a janitor. And he said Clint Howard invited him over to his house, and he had meetings about the backstory of this guy who's in the movie for a minute. And he's like so serious about it. And the director was like, dude, this is a small role. And Clint Howard said, I'm just honored that I get to do this for a living. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity. So every role is a gift. And I'm like, that's incredible. Like,
yes,
everything I hear about this man makes me like him more. So I just absolutely would love to work with him.
Well, I am going to keep my fingers crossed that hopefully that will pan out for you and for the film. That is amazing. That is truly wow. So, you narrowed the one big question I was going to ask was the seriousness of White Doomsday, and I know that you do truly love the quirkiness of splatter films. The first time I met you, as a matter of fact, was actually at Scares at Care 2, I believe. Yes. And you're stuck back in the very corner of this one room, and you've got an apron on, chef's hat, and you are just doused to yourself in blood. I believe you even had fake intestines and sausage links all over the place. So that was a big thing I was curious about, was which direction you were going to be going with. And as far as, let's say, Dead Format is done, you've had the premiere, it's ran its course, it's sometime in the not too far future. It's a huge success. Are you wanting to be the more serious roles? Because that kind of has the appearance of, maybe we know what Mike loves.
Yeah.
But when it comes to filmmaking, he kind of narrows it down and gets a little bit more serious.
So I think that these movies like White Doomsday, well, even going back to The Stall was my first attempt to do something more serious. And it's still funny, the short film about a guy trapped in a public bathroom during the Lovecraft apocalypse, but it's played straight. That was my first attempt to see if I could do something that was more like genuine horror and like a little scary. And that was the test run. And then White Doomsday was to see, can I do something that's more dramatic and serious? Because that's how I always write. All of my short fiction, there's humor in it, but for the most part, it's all extremely personal and very dark.
Right.
And that's me. I mean, that, like, I think that a lot of my earlier stuff was more comedy based, just because it's easier to do comedy. I mean, comedy comes very naturally. I mean, comedy's not easy to do, but it's something I'm very good at. And if you fuck up a drama, then people are going to mock you. Yes. But like comedy and horror comedy is a lot more forgiving. So I think that, and a part of me was secretly kind of shielding myself from, that, because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to pull off the stories that I wanted to. But now that I've done more, as I did more short films and got better experience and stuff, I became more confident in myself. So I started to edge more into the serious stuff. But that's more the stories I wanted to tell. And I like a mix of the two. I like being super goofball and then just nailing people with something like ultra serious and introspective. And Doomsday was kind of distilled. I always tell people it's Mike's Depression, the movie. But I think that really opened the door for me with my fiction and everything. And I think that Dead Format is kind of, like I said, the middle ground. And that's more where I'm leaning. The next feature I would like to make is called Masterwork. That's something I've been planning for almost 15 years. And that is also very much a very serious personal film, but it's got threads of comedy in it. And that comedy comes from the characters being funny, not necessarily like comedic situations. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but so I don't know. I'm interested in exploring both. I still write a lot of like comedy, like horror comedy, like short films and stuff that I want to do. I have a short that was based on the time I got death threats from a stalker,
nice.
Called You'll Never Feel Safe Again. And that's also very, very funny, but it's also got an undercurrent of very, very dark and serious if you look at it in the right light.
Sure.
So I like to kind of play back and forth, but I definitely am much more interested in the serious end of things. I mean, the opening line of Dead Format, the short story, and the movie, the first spoken line is, "Ain't nothing wrong with a little beeve." So just to to give the audience an idea, like I really wanted to set a tone that there's some irreverent humor because the main character collects VHS tapes, and part of that is his massive porn collection from the 80s. So there's situations like things, that come into play that you can't help but laugh because they are goofy. And all of our fake horror movies that we're showing, like we have a movie called Leprechaun, and someone's like, "Oh, the Jennifer Aniston movie." He's like, "No, Leprechaun,
Right?
Leprosy convict." We did a full fake sleeve for that, and but even that story, like he's talking about the movie, and it's actually supposed. Friends like, this looks so stupid, and he's like, "Well, actually, it was a really serious, like historical drama about Unit 731 and the Japanese World War II atrocities." And then the distributor bought the rights, said it wasn't commercial, and they reshot half of it, renamed it to Leprechaun instead of Amnesty for the Devil, and they turned into a shitty slasher movie. So even that stuff, like it's like a joke, and then it gets very serious, and it's like, my producers thought it was a real movie because I had so much backstory for it, and the script, they're like, I've never even heard of this. I'm like, just because it's fake, but it sounds so real. I'm like, that's where I get to like explore a little bit more of my comedic side because I can do that, but then also, like I said, the underpinnings of serious still in there. So
that's great. Oh man, I love it. I can't wait. I am so looking forward to this. I hate to have to wrap this up soon, but we've got about a minute and a half left.
All right.
The powers that be with Zoom. One last time though, please, Mike, throw out any .coms, names, anything you want. Let's throw it out.
Realsplatter.com is my website. Real with 2 E's, like a reel of film. Facebook is where I'm most active. Look me up, Mike Lombardo. I'm not the pedophile YouTube musician Mike Lombardo. If you Google my name, that will come up. That is not me. That motherfucker is a completely different person. And most importantly, the Indiegogo dead format. Look it up, please. Share the link. Donate. We need your help. We are so appreciative of all the people that have supported us so far, but we still have a long way to go and not much time to do it. So if you want to see dead format, if you're interested in any of the shit I've been rambling about, I need you to donate, please.
A lot of indie films out there, boys and girls. Mike Lombardo, if you are not familiar with his previous work, look it up. Watch it. You're going to fall in love with it. You're going to appreciate the filmmaker that this man is. And then go empty your wallets. Please help support him. He's a very talented young man. Mike Lombardo, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you again.
Absolutely.
Keep knocking on my door, man. Kim, let me know every time you need anything I can help with. You got updates, anything.
Absolutely, dude.
I would love to sit down and talk with you some more. I know you're going to be extremely busy very, very soon, but all things aside, we definitely want to wish you the best of luck. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Lombardo, Real Splatter Productions. The works for the film is Dead Format. Be sure to look that up and support it. Mike, thank you very much again, boys and girls. I am John Royceland signing out with another episode of the Witching Hour podcast. Thank you for joining me, and don't forget to always keep it evil.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.
Take care, Mike.